I am officially on week 3 of using a GLP-1 and I have had absolutely no side effects whatsoever. So of course my whole goal here was to kind of document and track some of my results. I have watched so many videos of people on a GLP-1, how many side effects they've had, and I've had none. So basically that probably makes it seem like I have absolutely nothing here to report, which kind of makes this video pointless, but I at least wanted to give updates. I have to say I spent, I don't know, well over a year just avoiding taking a GLP-1 because I was afraid of the side effects. I thought of how much it would impact my life if I had to deal with any sort of side effects, like I would have to miss work, I'd have to just take time off, that I'd be sick all the time. I didn't want to deal with that. And so I just avoided taking a GLP-1. Now that I'm on it, I've had no side effects. No side effects at all. And I'm sure people will probably say, well, maybe you're not on the right dose. That's something I've considered. At first I thought, well, maybe it just takes time to work. But like I said, I'm on week 3 now. Of course, I'm sure having side effects isn't anything anybody wants. But the fact that I don't have any, obviously this is my experience. Other people are going to have a different experience, but I thought I'd at least fill people in. So if I have nothing to report regarding taking a GLP-1, then I thought I would talk about some other stuff for this video. The 2 topics today that I would like to talk about are bread and starvation. Okay, bread, because I feel like over the years bread has kind of become the enemy, and I have definitely someone that has tried to avoid bread. It is high in carbs, it is empty calories. Of course, bread tastes good. When I was a kid, I think I was told things like, when you go to prison, they feed you only bread and water as a punishment. And I thought, I love bread. That didn't sound like a punishment at all. But I think if you watched a previous video of mine, I talked about this protein bread that I had purchased. I do have to say that when I purchased the bread, I could easily eat 1 or 2 slices and be fine, be full. If we were talking about in the past, I could easily eat a complete loaf of bread. I would go to the store, buy the bread. The bread's supposed to last you all week, and of course, I could never ration out my food properly. I would always buy groceries and then eat them all the first day I got them. Maybe you can relate to that. When I ate this protein bread, I ate 1 or 2 slices and I was fine. Now, is that because of the GLP-1? Is that because there's protein in the bread? I'm not real sure. In general, I'm probably just going to avoid bread. That seems like a good idea, just because, like I said, the empty calories. But I've definitely gone through phases of my life where I wanted to try to cut back on what I was eating, and I would just not eat bread. I would not eat tortillas, anything that was breaded food, like deep fried food that would have a breading coating on it. But of course, that's all stuff that people crave. They crave all that stuff, even if it's not good for you. For me, it was not sustainable to just avoid bread at all costs. Maybe for now, I'm going to cut it out of my daily diet, but I'll just say there's probably lots of things that we've all tried to try to lose weight. And I think a lot of times, like, I will get very set on something, like I'll say, like, I'm not going to eat bread, or I'm going to eat a salad every single day, or, you know, there's different like tips and techniques that are not necessarily a diet, but it's like, oh, I'm just going to do this or that, and that will somehow solve all life's problems. In fact, there was a time where I had a phase where I was like, I'm just going to eat 1 avocado every day. Why an avocado? I don't know. Maybe I heard that it's a healthy thing to eat. I ate 1 avocado every day for about a month. I really saw no change. I didn't lose weight. I didn't feel better. So I don't know what my goal was there, but it was just something I did. Avocados, of course, are very expensive, depending, I guess, on where you live or what time of year it is. But I definitely knew what the going price of avocados was, depending on what store or farm stand I went to. And I would try to seek out the most affordable avocados in town. That became my thing. So right now, I am, of course, doing another walk in the forest. Here's where I'm at. I wanted to try to film this because they're predicting rain. I believe it rained yesterday and it's gonna rain again today. So a lot of times I put off filming because I don't want rain to get on the camera, but let's get to my other topic. It probably sounds drastic when I said starvation. How many of you, when you were a kid, you were told to eat all your dinner, eat all your vegetables because they're starving kids in some faraway country? You should just be thankful that you have food. And so a lot of us were kind of maybe forced to eat all our food, even if we weren't hungry, because we were guilt tripped into hearing about these starving children living somewhere. Okay, so I feel like a lot of times when, I've mentioned before, I'm a very cheap person. When I buy something, I want to get my money's worth. When I buy food, I don't want it to go to waste. I eat the whole thing. I think some of these habits or thoughts or things that we've been told maybe aren't exactly healthy for us, because there's no reason to gorge yourself and eat everything in sight just because there's starving kids in some foreign country, or that there are, if I throw this food away, I'm not hungry, but if I throw it away, that's like throwing money in the garbage, so I have to eat it. I don't want it to go to waste. I mentioned starvation because I know when I was young, I would be told things like, you need to eat every day, because if you don't eat, a person can die if they haven't had food in 7 days. And then I would think, that's awful. I have to eat. I wouldn't want to starve to death. I would hear stories about people who did purposely not eat food in an attempt to lose weight, but I would think that that's awful, that's dangerous, that if you don't eat, you could die. These are all things I was told that, that I would believe. Then when I started to hear about people talking about intermittent fasting or just fasting in general, then I thought, well, that's the worst thing you can do, because you have to eat. Those are just ideas I had in my mind. That's what I was told or brought up to believe. Then there's times when I would watch those TV shows like My 600-Pound Life, where you'd think, maybe some of those people could skip a meal and they'd be all right. Maybe if they just didn't eat lunch one day, they're probably not gonna collapse and, end up in the hospital. But I would think about the times when I was really struggling, and this is where I'm gonna get into something here of what it's like being poor. Some of you who can relate to the struggle. There's times where what you get paid doesn't really cover all the bills, like what I got paid, even though I was working full time, my rent and all the other bills, the phone bill, the electric bill. And I'm not even talking about having a family or any of that stuff of having to support a whole family. But there's times where it would be all about choices. It'd be about, do I pay the electric bill this month, or do I pay the phone bill this month? Do I just sit in my house living without electricity? Because I've done that. And if anyone wanted to know why I can't afford my electric bill, a good portion of my life I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, where it can be 120 degrees in the summertime. You could easily get a $600 to $800 electric bill just for running your air conditioning. Could you live without air conditioning? Sure. You could also die and become a dried up skeleton if you did that, which would be great for Halloween, but not great for living. You kind of need air conditioning, and it can get mighty expensive to pay your power bill living in Arizona. Do I just not eat for a couple of days? Do I call in sick to work because I can't afford gas to drive to work? I lived like that for many years, and I don't know how many people watching this probably are living like that now. I have been able over time to save up a lot of money, and that was because I was living in my car and I was not paying rent. So that money that normally would go towards rent, I was kind of saving up. I'm not saying that everybody should do that, but I can definitely say that was my lifestyle. As far as there'd be several days where I wouldn't eat. And I was hungry. And it was all I thought about was wanting to eat. And I do think that maybe nowadays when I say that I kind of binge eat or whatever, I mean, maybe there's kind of this psychological making up for lost time, or thinking of all the times that I didn't have food. So it's my body or my mind wants to eat as much food as possible because I don't know when the next starvation is going to happen. And I say starvation meaning when I'm going to be able to afford food again. I am lucky enough that I can afford to eat every single day now, but I spent many years where I would honestly not eat for the whole week. I would go to work every day and not eat, and unless there was something happening at work where they would have pizza or a pizza party at work or something, and I'd maybe get one slice because you have to share with everybody. You can't be a pig. Then on the weekends, I would go and visit my family, and usually if you have like a family, like Sunday dinner or something like that, that would be like when I ate, and I would eat as much as possible. I would cram as much as possible as I could, and if I was lucky, I'd get to take home some leftovers. And then I would just not eat again for the whole entire week because I had no money. I barely had enough money, like I said, to put gas in my car to drive to work. I would have to call in sick all the time because I'd have to wait till payday came. I'd have to wait till direct deposit hit my account, and then I could put money in my car and I could drive to work. This made me probably not a very reliable employee. So not only are you, struggling to get by on the salary that you're paid, having to take time off just because you can't afford to get to work. Yeah, man, I'm just saying, because even then, to ride the bus, I'm saying, like, if you didn't have a car, you didn't have to pay for gas, you still have to pay money to ride the bus. And you have to ride the bus, like, both ways. And sometimes you have to transfer, where it's not just one bus that gets you to work. There might be like 2 or 3 buses where you have to transfer to another bus and then wait, who knows how long, 20 minutes for the next bus to come along. That adds how many hours of transportation to your day. So as much as this may sound like I'm complaining, this is not the state of my life now. It's the state of my life of what it was before. And it was a struggle. But like I said, there was a lot of times of just not eating, just, I don't know, hoping that someone would offer to take you out to eat. But, you definitely don't want to, like, tell people, like, hey, man, I haven't eaten in 4 days. Could you take me out to eat? Because, like, nobody wants to be that guy. So, I just silently kept to myself. Now, another thing about struggling and being poor like that, there were times where, I had certain things that were maybe had sentimental value that were passed down to me, some jewelry and collectibles. I ended up having to sell those things. I had to, take stuff to a pawn shop just to, like, have money to get by. Yeah, I understand those kind of, like, material possessions. Maybe I shouldn't care so much about them, but sometimes you do have to give up what's near and dear to you just to survive. Sometimes you have to do things that, well, I won't call them illegal, but sometimes you have to do some shady things, like when you don't have electricity in your house because you can't pay the power bill. Maybe somehow you run an electrical cord to your neighbors without them knowing. Or you learn to be scrappy, ingenious. You learn to think outside the box. You do your best to do what you can to make ends meet with what you got. Now, that's why I said I can't advise people to do those things, but those are definitely things I've done to get by. And all I can say is starvation obviously is not a comfortable feeling. Pigging out when you have more than your fair share is also not a good thing. I've had to kind of find a healthy balance, but this has been my life, which I am sharing with you guys. I'm always welcome to any of your comments, thoughts, and feelings. Please leave them below, and thank you for watching.